It is Thursday, January 29th, and I'm coming to you a little bit, it's been a weird day. It's been a weird day. And I was thinking about the topic for tonight's show. I was actually supposed to be at a networking event tonight, and I even bought a ticket earlier today to go fly to be with a family member who we all thought was in a crisis, and then it turns out it wasn't that way. I went to the airport and went through security and was all ready to board a plane, and then got a call saying, "Actually, you don't need to come." So it's been a really strange day. And so, as I was considering the topic for tonight, I was thinking about what's probably the most genuine place that I'm coming from. And I'm coming from a place where I need a lot of compassion towards myself right now. And I was thinking about compassion, and what does compassion actually mean? What are the definitions of these words that we throw around and use so cavalierly throughout our life? And I was thinking back tonight as I was planning the show, I was thinking about the word gentleness. I use that in my book Knowing, and the meaning of that is so beautiful. And gentleness effectively means to raise someone from commonality. So it's like we're all kind of here on the same playing field, and gentleness actually goes in and raises somebody up. And I just think that that's the most beautiful thing. Like, gentleness is to go in and kind of pick someone out and say, "You know what? I'm going to extend so much grace to you that I'm actually elevating you up, and just putting you up here on a pedestal for a while and just really loving on you." And that's gentleness. And compassion is a word that I've been thinking about a decent amount over the last couple of years, because I never afforded myself compassion growing up. It was a very high standard that I set for myself. I learned early on that if I did the right thing, if I behaved a certain way, I would get love. I would get approval, and that was kind of how we grew up in the church. There was a lot of like, hey, if you do the right thing, you'll get good behavior warrants good treatment. And in one sense, that's how it is. That's actually how the world works. If you don't do your job, you get fired. And that's just how the world works. And what ended up happening was I kind of just formed in my mind this if this, then that scenario with life. If I do good, I'll be treated good. If I do good, I'll be loved. And I never really did bad things. And so I never really tested the waters too much about, well, will I still be loved if I don't do what's right? Will I still be loved if I don't behave correctly? And because of that, I never really cultivated a relationship with compassion. And the way that I think about compassion is that it's very, empathy. What's the difference between compassion and empathy? And empathy is one of my favorite words. And actually, it's embedded in the definition of emotional intelligence. The definition of emotional intelligence is twofold. So the first half has to do with you and me. It's the ability to become aware of, understand, and express one's own emotions. So that's our part. And then the ability to handle interpersonal relationships with wisdom and with empathy. And empathy really is the sitting alongside someone in their experience, looking at the world through their lens, and frankly, looking at the world through their experience. What did you experience just now? What did you experience in the past? How is your experience, past and present, being colored and impacting the way that you see me even? And empathy is probably one of the hardest things we can learn to cultivate, because it really is setting aside our own lens and saying, I'm just going to be curious about yours. What did you experience? What are you seeing? We've been doing a show every morning as we go through a book study called A Course in Miracles. And every morning there's a different lesson. And one of the biggest lessons over the last couple of days has to do with, I want to see clearly, in this effectively admittance that I don't see perfectly right now. I see through the past. I see my lens effectively is colored by what I've been through. And when we recognize that our lens is colored by the past and their lens is colored by the past, man, if I really want to get to know someone, I need to go and sit with them in their experience and really come to know the world through their eyes. And then once we know my experience and their experience, then we can be like, okay, now how do we want to move forward? Because really relationships are so hard. And there's folks who are like, oh, we never fight in our relationship. And everyone's like, wow, I don't know how you're gonna last, but good job. And then sometimes they do. Sometimes they last, and there's very rare couples who never fight, and then others who implode. But fighting for me, because of how I grew up, just the environment in our home there was such a pursuit of peace and such a pursuit of love that we never learned how to do conflict, and thus we never had to learn much compassion because there was so much of everybody kind of just did as they were told. And so we never had major fights, we never had major discord. And I really lacked an understanding of how do I engage with normal environments where people disagree. And before I keep going, I just want to just say hey to folks in the chat. Brian, I'm so glad to see you. Ellen Hoffman, hot dog. I can't believe she's here. I don't know if you're still here, but that is my precious mama. Lauren, hello from France. I'm so glad to see you, Lauren. Few Q Red Grayman, good to see you. Con, hello from Australia. Hello. England, TMCC Kane, thank you for coming on here. My mama, you're so wonderful. You extended that gentleness and compassion and so beautifully to your family members. Thank you. Well, you showed us how. Dub Styles, I love this. I try to uplift everyone I see, even if I'm doing beyond bad. Just simply smile and bless. Man, isn't that so powerful? Yo, we have so much power just through exactly what you said, Dub Styles, just by smiling and blessing. And it's hard because, man, if we're not in a good frame of mind, it's so hard to extend something good to other people. So that's the radical responsibility. When we get on every morning for the morning show, we get on at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. Every morning we get on, it's really our time to get centered, to be like, okay, who do I want to show up as today? Am I doing okay? It's radical responsibility over ourselves to ensure that we're proceeding from a full cup rather than giving from a glass half full, or even giving from a full cup, but we're able to give from overflow. That's the ideal. So just coming back to the chat. Good to see you guys. Thank you for coming on, Gray Man. Yeah, isn't that the truth? He says you still get treated wrong being good. That is so incredibly true. Okay, so that will get to kind of the next part here. He's speaking to when I shared, my logic was if I am good, then I will be treated good and I'll be loved. And that proved not to be the case later on in life. The Mud Skipper, hey, how are you doing? Joshua, I'm not AI, but I'm real, I'm live, I'm here now. Junior Caraway, Gary King, Brian C. When was the last time you tried something new? I got a weighted vest this weekend, and I have been running with a weighted vest. That's something new, and it is very hard. It's 30 pounds, and man, I'm like I'm just like walking up the stairs, and I'm like, ooh, it's really good. I highly recommend it. So the last time I did something new was Sunday. I'd like to hear though, y'all, what's the last time you tried something new? So for everyone here in the chat, I'd actually love to hear what y'all have tried that's new, and then I'll get back to our daily program. Morphles. I don't know how to say that. Good to see you guys. Gary King, honesty always. I am with you there. JR 2022 11. Let's be empathetic together. I'm with you. Rajesh, thanks for coming on here. Jade the Sun, Moomba, Dub Styles. That's how I try to approach life. See everything from all the perspectives. Isn't that so good? That's so good. I'm going to jump back in because I think that that's something that's really, really important. Seeing things from all the perspectives. How much are we actually able to engage with a moment, with a circumstance, with a situation, and see all the different vantage points. Frankly, I traveled for about 3 or 4 years, kind of living nomadically, and I would take these different approaches and perspectives of like I was boarding a plane, and man, is there not a better situation to have yourself get triggered or just observe yourself in a new dynamic than having the stewardess right there watching you, waiting, a whole line of people waiting behind you, the person who's sitting right there that you need to get past, and you've got all your stuff, and you're like, I am in the everyone's way. And you're just like, ah. And for me, growing, given how I was raised and how I grew up, which was I was raised again in just such a loving environment. And I didn't know how to take up space in a way that required the discomfort of others or the inconvenience of others. In fact, I really, really tried so hard not to inconvenience anybody. And so being on a plane in that situation, it's so interesting you say that, Dub Styles, because I actually could not take the perspective of other people until I had really truly sat in my own experience. And so that was a big difference for me. When I for 10 almost 10 years of being in my former relationship, I only ever sat in his experience, in his shoes. So when we talk about taking all the perspectives, I actually have to take mine as well. Because if I'm only ever doling out compassion to everyone else and withholding compassion for me, and again, the way that I describe compassion, I didn't get there yet. So empathy is to sit in someone else's experience. But then compassion is empathy in action. I see your experience. I feel what it is that you are going through, and I'm going to take action accordingly. I care that much to not just sit with you and either grieve or feel the pain that you're in or feel the joy that you're in, but I'm going to take action on your behalf. And that is real compassion, is when we're effectively moved by the suffering or the experience of somebody else to do something. And in that action of compassion, man, do we change. And so often we get to really show someone else how much we care. But if we're never doing that for ourselves, so often we end up kind of neglecting the parts of us that need tending to, the parts of us that need healing, that we haven't addressed from the past that has been painful, or there's hurt there. So if we never once sit in our own experience, never extend empathy for our experience, and then God forbid never take action in response to the empathy which we feel and the experience which we had, we're really kind of doing a massive disservice to ourselves, but then also to other people. Because what inevitably happens is that if we're a harsh judge of ourselves, we will subconsciously take that same judgment, which we hold for ourselves, and extend it to others, even if it's so subtle, even if it's so quiet, and we never really hear it come out until we're in a moment of stress or in a moment of fight or flight, where our nervous system is kind of kicking into gear. And so Dubstyle said it so perfectly. We need to take all the perspectives, sitting in their experience and probably chiefly sitting in ours first, because otherwise, man, we self-abandon. And just because we're sitting in their experience or just because we're sitting in ours doesn't mean we can't go and sit in the experience of the other. And that's something that, we don't talk about very much. It's like, who's right? Who's wrong? Rather than experience. And this is a really important differentiation between the truth of what happened, my truth, versus saying my experience. This is what happened to me. This was the lens through which I saw the world. This was what I experienced in that moment. But if we're saying my truth, we're effectively drawing a demarcating line saying, this is the truth, my truth, and you're on the other side. You're now fundamentally on the other team. And my sister's husband, the one who passed away, he used to always say, why are we fighting? We're on the same team. And I love that, because yes, we probably will still have an argument, even if we are having that thought we're on the same team. But what it does do, when we fundamentally believe we're sitting on the same team, we're on the same side, it allows for us to have coexisting experiences, even if they're really different from each other. No longer is it my truth and I'm right and you're wrong. Now it's, okay, I have a very different experience from you. We're on the same team. I know, and this is where we speak the truth, the objective truth of, I know you're loved. I know you're worthy. I know that I love you. And then we kind of reinforce the truth to ourselves about the other person. And then it's, okay, tell me your experience, because baseline, I do love you. And baseline, I actually think that you have a good heart towards me and you have good intentions. And I really am experiencing something so differently than you, so I really need help understanding. So this whole concept over the last couple of weeks that we've been working on in A Course in Miracles of effectively self-admitting, I do not see clearly, predisposes us at a heart and soul level so that when we are in moments of conflict, we've already been training those muscles and working out the muscles of our heart and soul and also our mind to know I'm not seeing things perfectly. Therefore, tell me your experience. And I want to sit with you in your experience. And then I want to tell you mine. And hopefully they're on the same page to sit with you in yours. And then compassion is the empathy which we feel for ourselves and them, and then taking action in response, which is then it becomes compassion. So just taking a quick moment on the chat. Belavia, good to see you. Hello. Thanks for joining. John Rose, Brandon, Jackson, hello from Brazil. Good to see you. Dub Styles, she's the best, isn't she? Just kind of going through here. Victor, y'all be careful with your comments. My mama's in the chat. I was on last night. I had someone on as a guest, and he was like, we got off, and he was like, Christine, some people are really mean. And I was like, I know. And this was tame. But I love the comments. The comments are my very, very favorite. Christopher Adams, the golden rule is really the only thing that comes to mind towards acting in compassion. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. In this case, actions of love speak louder than words. I love this. Isn't that the truth? There's a reason why it's called the golden rule. Like, do we want to be treated that way? Like that's a pretty good boundary, like it's kind of, I love the analogy of a horse with blinders on. Like if we know who we want to be, how we want to show up, we've got these values and these principles of life to guide us as we live life. And I think that's just the golden rule is one of those principles that serves as a blinder. Like we're just not even going there. We're not even looking in that direction. We're not even paying attention over there because I want to treat others as I want to be treated. And so therefore, even though I don't feel like it, I'm going to will my emotions to act in accordance with my intellect. This is where enacting the intellect and the emotions and having both intelligences turned on, the left hemisphere of the brain, our IQ, with the right hemisphere of the brain, the EQ. And when we have both working in concert together, man, do we then have both parts speaking to us and informing us. And then you and I, we get to choose. It's never the emotions at the helm of the ship. It's never just our intellect at the helm of the ship because so much of relationship is emotional. So if we're just leading with our mind, man, our heart's being left behind and people can tell. It's like, actually, my darling has told me this a couple of times. He's like, hey, Christine, move into your heart. Because I have a tendency, and that's how I operated so much of my life, to be operating for my head. And so he's like, oh, move down here. And that's been so good. Oh, it's over here. And he was like, that was to me probably one of the most impactful things anyone has ever said to me was move from here to here, move from your head to your heart. Because now both are switched online. And now both I can derive data and intelligence from both quadrants, both parts of me. And so if I'm only ever operating with the intellect or only ever operating with the emotions, it is a sure sign of disaster coming. Because when I'm in relationship and I've only got my IQ turned on, they're going to be missing the empathy. It's really hard to extend empathy from just your mind and just your intellect. But then it's also hard to act in accordance, Christopher, to your point, the golden rule. If I don't have a guiding principle guiding my practice and my actions when my emotions are not there, and man, I'm pissed off or angry, it's going to be really hard to maintain that as a boundary of like, okay, I'm feeling this way and let me breathe through it, or whatever practice you put in place. This is where the principle needs to have a practice. So the principle of compassion sounds great. What does the practice and application of it really look like? If I'm angry, the principle guiding me is, okay, well, I want to What's a principle in that case? For me, of who I want to be, who I want to be is somebody who is vulnerable. I want to be someone who's authentic. I want to be someone who walks in my power. I want to be someone who forgives. And so all of those pieces of who I want to be, that then is this is what it means to be vertically aligned, is that I bring my emotions and my intellect, my beliefs, my behaviors, everything into, it's like all these disparate parts, and I bring all of that into alignment under the subservient order of who I want to be, my ideal rules. Everything I feel, think, every action comes under this hierarchical order of who do I want to be, and then who does God say that I am? What does God want and say for me? Because it's going to be good. And then if I'm acting in alignment, I can trust and have this is where hope is the best of things. I think that's in *Shawshank Redemption, which I've never seen. I need to see that. But that's a quote that I heard, that hope is the best of things. And I just love that. That's where hope comes in. That, man, if I'm acting in alignment with who I want to be and who I believe God has called me to be, then I can trust what happens is ultimately for my good, no matter what. And that's really, really hard, because there's some really awful things that happen in this world. And somehow that is redemption will come. There's a few promises that I really, really believe. And one of those promises is that everything, at somehow, some way, that God is big enough that it will be used for my good. And this is where we've got the intellect, we've got our emotions, and we've got intelligences from both IQ and EQ. We also have a spirit. And the spirit really is important for us to turn on and tap into. And every single morning in our early shows, that's really what we focus on, is actually integrating the IQ and the SQ, the spiritual intelligence. And how do we allow for both to work in concert together? Because for so long, so many of these evening shows, we talk about emotional intelligence, how to turn on our EQ, how to awaken that part of us that for many of us has been silenced since we were kids. I was talking to a gentleman who owns a business, very successful, and he said when he was young, his mom would say to him, "If you don't stop crying, I'm going to give you something to cry about." And he's like, "Okay," so he hasn't cried in 20 years. That's the thing. That's kind of what we're talking about. How do we resurrect and go back and redeem and reclaim these parts of us that we left in childhood because of any reason, whether it was even a harsh word, a broken promise. Last night on the Knowing Show, we were talking with Dustin Reichman, and he was talking about really, really devastating abuse that he experienced from his dad. And so those are the things that we go back and uncover and heal. We were talking last night, and one of the things that we addressed was that because the abuse that he experienced was so severe, there were layers underneath that he effectively couldn't go and heal. Like, for example, he would get whipped by his dad when he would go to eat, and he developed an eating disorder. And so that was something he actually couldn't really heal or get, almost like he couldn't access until he had peeled back the bigger layers of the onion around just the trauma of the abuse in general, and how his dad broke his mom's back, so awful. But it was like he couldn't access the smaller parts of the trauma until he had dealt with the really big part. So it is like peeling back an onion, the healing process. So before we continue, I just want to jump into the chat. Hello, everybody. Phil, good to see you. Thanks for joining. Gary King, Brian, I love it. Brandon, started 3D printing. Ooh, I would love, love, love to hear what you've made. I would love to get a 3D printer. A friend of mine, she prints, what does she print? She prints candle holders and sconces. And I think that's so fun. And then she paints them and uses them around her home. Christopher says, live from the frozen north of Maine, by the way. Live from the frozen north of Maine, by the way. I'm practically Canadian. Sirach, I asked people what's something new that you guys are doing, and Sirach 2144 says red room therapy, infrared light therapy, float tank therapy. Holy cow. I don't know what this is. Cryogenic chamber therapy. I'm taking a picture of this. Cold plunge therapy is a game changer for recovery at the gym. I would love to. Okay, so when you do infrared therapy, and also I don't even know the difference between those. Red room therapy, infrared therapy. I actually don't know what the difference is there, but that's the one where you actually are sitting. I've seen ones where you can put on the mask and you get the light, and then I see ones where you sit in front of a machine and it's like it's almost like you sit on a mat and then you have this machine like on you, and then I've seen ones where you lay on the table. So I'd be curious what you're doing. But man, I would love that. Oh, oh no. What is this? You said, oh gosh, no, I lost the chat. Oh no. You know what I just realized? I realized that when there's so many chats, they get deleted. That's why I went through. Okay, darn. That's so sad. Um, well, guys, I just lost half y'all's chats. That's so sad. All right, Brandon. I'm just looking through here. Lee Stew, what's up? Thanks for coming on here, Edward. Um, Dub Style says, I'm having trouble learning to love myself, but definitely doing better. It's not as easy as it sounds. I know what you mean. Oh my gosh, I'm actually so glad you brought this up, Deb Styles, because that was something, talk about self-compassion and empathy for ourselves. That was something that I actually read this line from Brene Brown. She's a clinical psychologist and a researcher. And so she put together this book called Daring Greatly. And this book was probably my gateway to really emotional intelligence, because I had viewed emotions as weakness most of my life. And so when I read this book, first I learned emotions aren't weakness, and I really resonated with the men in the book, where she was talking about how men for the most part will suppress emotions, and they thought that they were supposed to be the hero, and the hero doesn't show emotions, and the hero is strong, and the hero never lets on that they're having a good time. In fact, at one point in the book, she talks about this man, and he's at one of her conferences with his daughters and his wife, and the daughters and wife come up and they're like, we want you to sign our book. And then they walk away, and he quietly kind of looks at her and he's like, the prince on the knight on the white horse analogy. And she's like, yeah. She was like, if I was to fall off, and just be really honest that I'm having a hard time, they would be really disappointed in me. Like, it's for their sake that I'm not vulnerable and honest. Like, I would shake their world if I let on that I had a problem. And I thought that was so interesting, how many of us are existing in this almost illusion, because we've made ourselves appear impervious to pain. So now everyone's relying on us. Everyone is looking to us to be the savior because we positioned ourselves that way. And then, man, the higher up we go in their minds of being on that pedestal, the farther we have to fall. And so it's a dangerous game, this game of not showing emotions and not being honest, because it positions them for it's not true. It's not the truth. And so then when we feel so alone and so isolated in our pain or in our grief, or just the reality of how much we're carrying, there truly is no one around us, because we have not let anyone in. And so, to your point, I actually grew up viewing emotions as a weakness. It just didn't seem, kind of like with the whole thing where there was just so much peace and love, where it was like, oh, well, I'm not feeling peaceful or love, like lovely. So what do I do? And so I never really learned how to express negative emotions. And so because of that, I actually had to really learn how to sit with the negative emotion and not shame it. And then I also had to learn, like, that's part of being human. So I really did not understand that emotions really do constitute half of us. So if I was unwilling to face the negative emotions, I also was being unwilling to face the full gamut of the positive emotions too. So I started realizing that emotions are 50% of us, just like our, into it's right brain and left brain, to the normal trope of it's not actually scientific that we have parts, like our brain isn't cut in half, but the right hemisphere, left hemisphere of the brain. And so I was effectively cutting off a good portion of myself and access to myself by my unwillingness to feel emotions and express emotions, and thus live fully. And so, to your point, Upstyles, of actually loving ourselves, man, I had to first know myself in order to then be able to love myself. And I did it probably about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, of just really to use that onion analogy, like pulling back the layers, my therapist was like, "Well, what do you need?" And I was like, "I don't need anything. I don't need anyone. I don't need anything." And he was like, and I really meant that, y'all. I wasn't kidding. Like I genuinely tried to be impervious to pain, and I always wrote in my journal, I was like, I don't want to care so much. Like I just tried so hard to not need anyone and not have to rely on anyone and be the savior and hero to everybody. And when he looked, after I said that, he looked at me and he was like, "Well, you need water, you need oxygen." And I kind of rolled my eyes because I was like, dang it, you're right. And then I really started leaning into it. And I was like, all right, I think I do need love. Like I think I do need connection. I think I need relationships. Like that's actually something that I think I need in order for me to be healthy. But here's the thing, if I didn't even know what Christine Marie looked like healthy versus what Christine Marie looked like in unhealth, I then couldn't know what do I need to be healthy. And then what do I need, to stave off from unhealth. And so it's been such a journey. I have to know myself before I can love myself. And in order for me to, make sure that I'm healthy, I actually have to know what health looks like in the first place. And then I can try to go and meet my own needs. And so I think that that was something that it's been a journey of first knowing who I am and who did God create me to be? Who was I as a little girl before all the all the things started happening where I started conforming to who the world wants you to be. Y'all, if you go on any of our social media platforms, the world is telling us who to be, influencers and even here on the show, I'm telling you, oh, you are made for a purpose. Like I'm telling you what I think. And so it's really, I really believe that each one of us has a reason why we're here. And I believe each one of us has the ability to be so impactful. And I think we are. Like, I think we make an impact on people around us, even if we don't realize it. So every single one of us has a message, every single one of us has a belief system, even when we don't think we really do. So the question is, am I actually taking time alone with myself enough to cultivate my own for my own sake, for my own self? Or am I constantly living in reaction to the inputs of the external world? So, this concept of being internally sourced has been something that's really resonated with me. Like, am I sourcing my own thoughts? Am I sourcing my own joy? Am I sourcing my own worth? Or am I outsourcing all of my meaning and all of the joy in my life? Am I effectively a dependent? Am I addicted to every stimulus outside of me? Or can I really source from my own well, my own reservoir, joy and peace and love? Can I meet my own needs in that way? And that doesn't mean that we don't need community. I freaking love community. I love, I love reading here in the chat what is meaningful to you guys. I love hearing what's working for you and what you're trying. Like, I want to learn about red light therapy. So I really think that we need each other, and I think we also need more time alone to tend to ourselves and to make sure that we're doing okay and to really there's something really beautiful, about each one of us. There's something really beautiful about coming to know, oh man, that's right. I forgot when I was 5 years old that I loved Star Wars. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like those little things, those little things. Ever since I was a little girl, I loved playing tea, and now today as an adult, I love going to a tea room. But we have to sometimes reawaken those parts of us that we haven't talked to or paid attention to in a long time. Like, who said this? James, I'm a nerd. Like, I love that. Like, I want to know who you all are. And a lot of times we get so much more clarity on who we are by way of being alone and not filling our mind with inputs by everybody else, but sitting with our own thoughts and sitting with even Ben, you said here, I think it was, I'm trying to go up to the top. No, they keep getting deleted. Darn. Um, Somebody said, "What are you afraid of?" I thought it was you, Ben, but maybe it wasn't. Um, yeah, like what are we afraid of? What do we love? What brings us joy? That's one of my favorite questions is what is life giving to you? So anyways, I am going to take a look here at the chat. I'm sorry I didn't know that these would get deleted. I want to see if there's something I can do on my end so that they don't get deleted anymore. Um, all right, just checking in with the chat. Hello. Lee Stu, Dub Styles. Never make an important decision from the knee-jerk reaction. Man, y'all, take that away from what tonight. That's so good. Um, Daddy Fat Stacks, good to see you. Jim C, Antonio, Eric, James. Thank you, James. John Rose, thank you. Thanks for joining on here. Boo, boo, boo. Hello. Oh, my alarm just went off. For those of you who join the daily show in the morning, A Course in Miracles lesson today for January 29th is God is in everything I see. So God is in everything we see. Anthony, intelligent and emotional thinking are very different, with all due respect, but maybe I'm missing a part of the conversation. I completely agree with you. The intellectual intelligence and then the emotional intelligence, they both are very different parts of us. Like the intellect is so much more so the mind, and then the emotions are like our soul. And so the goal is that we're actually both of them store data, just like how our physical body stores data. And so the goal is to be intelligent in and among all of the parts of us, so that I think of it kind of like a boardroom, where every morning I come into the boardroom during my practice in time of vertical alignment, and I'm like, okay, soul, how are you doing? What emotions are there that I need to process? Because if I don't pay attention, that emotion will try to take the helm of the ship, try to take the wheel. And then same with the intellect, are there thoughts that are kind of plaguing me that I'm taking in from the day before that I need to let go of? Maybe where I need to extend forgiveness towards other people. On the physical side, how's my physical body today? Our body really does. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score, and it's by Bessel van der Kolk, and he's the doctor actually who coined the term post-traumatic stress disorder, because for so long, war veterans were just like all of a sudden they'd get so triggered, and they were being put in mental hospitals because people didn't understand that our body literally stores data, and our emotions do, our brain and mind do. So I'm glad you brought that up, because yes, I completely agree. They're very different, and they warrant, all of them warrant respect. But that's a whole other conversation. John Rose, thank you. Brandon, that's funny. Leah, thanks for coming on here. I'm sorry that you feel that way. Boo Boo, Dub Styles. Y'all, I think it is time to jump off. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight. I appreciate you all coming on here, and yeah, I appreciate it. Just before I jump off, Anthony, I'm a vet. Thank you for your service. You said I was in the VA for a bit. Thank you so much. I mean, I can't imagine what you've seen. Someone actually came on last night and was like, I was basically I was in a war zone for, I think he said 139 days. Anthony, I don't remember if that was you or not. But yeah, man, our bodies, I can't imagine what war veterans have seen and experienced, and then they take home and try to integrate with society, and it's like, I don't know. It's so awful and so hard. So I just have so much respect for you guys. So thank you. I am going to have an early bedtime tonight. It was kind of a weird day, and so I'm gonna go to bed. But I will see you all tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Eastern, for A Course in Miracles. Y'all, what a blessing it is that we get to do life together and support each other. Tomorrow, I'm actually starting a 61-day challenge for people who have been interested. I don't think any of y'all joined. I don't remember. But we're doing a 61-day challenge, and my challenge starts tomorrow. So if you guys want to do it without joining, the WhatsApp group or anything, pick something and then let me know what you guys choose for tomorrow morning or tomorrow night. I believe I have a guest tomorrow night at this time at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. So I think I have a guest. Let me confirm. Yes, I do. Okay, I'm actually tomorrow's guest is going to be good. He authored the book, The Silence Paradox. So tomorrow night show is going to be good. Otherwise, tomorrow morning, I'll see you. It'll just be me in the morning, 8:30 a.m. Eastern, and then tomorrow night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And in the meantime, thank you all. James, good to see you. Oatsmas Prime. God bless our servicemen. I completely agree. Thank you all. Have a wonderful